What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi back with my man Eric Sheets-Haber. We are bringing you the MLB show today on our channel. And yeah, we've got an interesting MLB slate. We're one day removed now from Sheets having a good Sunday. I had a good Sunday, but Sheets had a really good one. And we're ready to attack some real baseball. Yesterday was kind of an ugly slate, and today is we got a lot of options, man.
I'm really psyched about it, especially from an educational perspective. I think you guys are really going to get a lot out of this because there's so many different ways you could go, and to really talk about that concept in general it's gonna be interesting because you could go a lot of ways pitching wise, a lot of ways hitting wise. I feel as though there's a difference between the sites. With respect to, I'm having a lot easier time, finding like full teams to attack on DraftKings as opposed to teams to attack on FanDuel.
Right.
I find that the chalk on FanDuel is a little harder for me to get away from. So what I'm going to be doing on FanDuel is probably just, maybe you could talk me into this or off of this, but creating like a bunch of little two-mans maybe, and three-mans, you know what I mean, to kind of complement some of the other things.
Right.
But we'll see when we go through it. I think it's going to be a really fun slate to – I don't know how fun it's going to be to results-wise, but I know it's going to be a fun one to analyze. So that's cool.
This is a good player's slate. It's tough. Anytime you get out there and it goes – there's nobody I really feel like I need to have anywhere, and there's no hitting I need to have, but there's a lot of places I kind of want. It just leaves a lot of room for variance and a lot of room for hopefully money making.
Yeah, this is usually the anti-Eric slate. Like the Eric slates are the ones where 95 points gets first. So we'll see what happens.
I'm the opposite. I need like 700 points first.
Yeah, that's right. And your Thanksgiving slates where there's like a 13-game slate and you put one lineup in and it gets second or whatever.
Yeah, no, that's true. I got first one time with it a couple of years ago. But all right, let's get into it.
This is not even almost my lineup. I just literally wanted to fill in some players and stuff like that.
Yeah, I understand. That's fine. I mean, it's actually not that. It doesn't seem unreasonable to me even at first.
I don't know. I literally almost randomized this. So okay, we'll see.
All right, well, let's go for the first game, Toronto, New York. Sheets, I'm struggling with this one because I don't know. I have a feeling about New York today, scoring some runs, but I like Walker in general as a pitcher, and the slate's big enough. On a smaller slate, I think I would be very into a Yankee stack here. I don't know that I'm getting there very much, especially on DraftKings where the pricing, you're not really getting great value depending on how the lineup shakes out. So it's not quite as exciting for me, even though I could see them putting up a lot of runs against, not just Walker. There's a pretty lousy bullpen behind him. I don't love it, but I'm sort of 50-50, and I have interest in, just this realistically, I have interest in Garcia, and that's pretty much what I'll probably end up doing from this game, even though I like the Yankees bats. Yeah,
so first thing that what you hit on is, the real key, and honestly, this is, I put on the top of my page, one of the whole keys, not want to say the slate, whatever, but you really got to see what this Yankee lineup is. You know, it could, it's possible both these guys are back, right? Judge and Stanton. And it's possible neither of them play. You know what I mean? You just have to kind of watch and see where they're batting and see the lineups and stuff like that because, on a slate where, you'd like to find a team to go after, you got to keep your eyes peeled. So if the lineup works out where you could play these Yankee guys, great. I don't even want to begin to speculate really on who I would like, unless I see like some kind of clarity.
Tauchman, for example, the cheap, he's supposed to bat ninth. There's a chance he could bat first here. Like it's absolutely possible. You know what I mean?
I'm pretty sure that I'll like Hicks regardless.
Yeah, the one who makes the most sense. But do you really want to play Hicks as a one-off on this slate? I don't think so. That's why I'm saying about the Yankees. To me, it's a stack or fade situation. Okay. And I don't usually feel like so strongly, but with the prices the way they are, especially on DraftKings. Now, on FanDuel, I think you can play Glaber at 2,900 just because it's a good price. And depending on where Tauchman bats, also Hicks, they all make sense fine. But I don't know. I would sort of lean stack or fade here, I think.
The other thing is just not look, it's a 12-game slate, 24 pitchers, right? So this is not – so I'm not saying this is the only way to go. But, one of the decisions people are going to probably be making is whether they play Garcia or Urquidy, right, later at a very similar price. They'll both be very popular. And they both have different kinds of upside, right? Like Garcia's that shiny new toy with incredible, credible hype, maybe for good reason upside, right? And Urquidy's a little bit more a little bit more of a known quantity, but not quite as much of the flash, you know what I mean, as Garcia goes. So they're very similar price. They'll probably be similarly owned. And people are probably going to either play one of those two guys or both of them, depending on what else they want to do. So, yeah, I do think that Garcia is certainly in play. But I do have to watch the ownership on this, right? So if Garcia does become just like incredibly popular, I look, they're just options, so I don't necessarily have to play him, right? I'm not going to be in the mood to probably play Toronto guys against him, right? Because I like to do that sometimes if a chalky pitcher gets too chalky to play the leverage guys against him. I just didn't get to any of the Toronto guys, so in this game, that's not where I'm going to go. Again, now as far as Walker goes, I'm kind of I don't want to play Walker against a good lineup. You know what I mean? Like if I have to face a Yankee good lineup, I don't think I want to do it. But if you do get the bad lineup, he could end up being lost in the shuffle as an SP2. So I'm just keeping my eye on the Yankee lineup in general to figure out what I want to do. What do you think of Garcia? Just kind of like as I don't want to make it just between those two guys, but what do you think of him on this slate in general?
So I look, obviously got good stuff. I think at his price, he might actually get a pretty good amount of ownership. It's sort of like how do you rank this? Like, look, he just pitched 7 innings against this team and was terrific. Put up 25 fantasy points. And great. We would love that. At the same time, he just faced this team. I actually think he might have more of an advantage against, a young guy like this, against a team that maybe hasn't seen him before. So it just depends on how you rank it. I definitely have him near the top of my list for guys I would spend down on that SP2 for sure. Mm-hmm. But, there's a lot of middling guys. And you mentioned, Walker. I don't think I could get to him today, and even against a bad lineup, although I don't think it's like the worst play in the world. I actually think he's better than most people give him credit for, even though I also have seen him blow up and get rocked, which is why I like the Yankees a little bit. But when it comes to Walker versus Dunning versus Boyd, I'm tending to prefer the other two.
Yeah, and there's another one that we're going to get to later also that I forgot to mention.
There's a really weird one, too, that I've got that I'm not going to play on this slate, but I'm not going to have to talk myself out of it, but it's okay. I have some projection systems here that I don't usually look at that have him really highly ranked, and it's kind of interesting.
Nice. All right, we'll get into that.
All right, ready for the next one?
Yeah, so Mets and Philly, who do we have? Porcello and Arrieta. So it depends on the site for me. Well, not really. I'm kind of into, like, if you accept, by the way, I mean on DraftKings that Oakland and also Arizona, I guess, are going to be the two chalkier stacks or whatever, two chalkier teams. I'm looking for other teams to do it, and the Phillies are certainly one of them. You know what I mean? To possibly use, and Porcello, I don't really care about playing lefties and lefties against him. I think they'll reach somewhere. He might even be reverse splits, sort of. I'm not even sure, but I'll play McCutchen. I'll play Harper. I'll play Halsey and Bond, whatever his name is, and Didi also. I think Phillies could definitely be one of the teams to use. And on the other side, the Mets also in this spot. I just, maybe not a full stack, but kind of, the kind of easy to play, 3-man lefties, you know what I mean? Like Davis, Nemo, Conforto, the normal guys kind of like to play from the Mets. So I do have some interest in this game on both sides with respect to the hitting.
Yeah, I think I'm more interested a little bit in the Mets where they're a little cheaper on FanDuel, especially like J.D. Davis is like 2,600. And I know it's righty, but that's okay. Arrieta can give it up on both sides. I'd rather play the lefties, but. That's
what I meant, actually. I was looking at FanDuel when I was talking about that, actually. It's really
yeah. No, but it makes a lot of sense. I mean, going down to the guys like the Canoes, the Nemo, even McNeil and Conforto, I can completely get behind it. Do I want to fully stack against Arrieta here on this slate? And do I want to fully stack against Porcello? I don't think so. I just feel like there's better spots to attack. Now, I certainly am behind the Philly players, especially like Baum. He's 2,700 playing, batting third. He's been batting third, assuming he bats third again. It would be hard not to have some interest. In general, the Mets would make more sense as a stack from one angle, which is that Arrieta just walks a lot more guys, simple as that, than Porcello does. He also just dazzled this Mets team and put up a gem against them, 2 starts ago. So I don't know that I'm going to get so far on board, but I like the power bats from what happens with Porcello is he doesn't walk people as much, and he runs into some contact. But you look at him this year, he's given up 2 home runs only this year. Let's think about, like, do we really want to stack against a guy who's only given up 2 home runs all year? And he hasn't been walking that many people. It just feels weird to me. That's all I'm saying. You know what I mean? So not something that can happen. And by the way, it's his 3rd start against this team. If there's ever a time, like 3 starts in one season, and actually 3 starts within a month and a half, that's a lot. That's something I would usually bank on. So I'm okay with it. I just don't think on this slate, and again, I'm going to say this about a lot of teams, they don't feel like full stacks to me, even though I could get behind the Mets one more so, especially on FanDuel. I think I actually thought Philly early, and then now I'm sort of a little bit higher on the Mets. But overall, I'm more using this for one-offs, and it's going to be the guys I mentioned along with Bohm because he's really cheap, and I don't mind Didi as a one-off.
The other thing I would mention is that Real Muto, like I presume, is out. And that obviously it just kind of reduces the overall production of the Phillies. Yet on the other hand, it might open up like a minimum cost catcher if you wanted to make a stack work.
Yep, I agree.
Who's the catcher for Philly? Is it Knapp still?
Who they're going to use today? It's supposed to be. Let me see what I've got in my lineup.
Yeah, that's what I see. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
All right, you want to move on?
Yeah, let's move on. Kansas City, Detroit. All right. My first lineup build before he was scratched later this morning after I found out he was out, had both pitchers from this game, which might seem like a little bit of a reach, but I'm going to make a little bit of a case for Matt Boyd is a better pitcher than he's pitched all year. I know that it's been incredibly streaky. I'm a tournament player. I'm more than willing to embrace variance. He got absolutely lit up in his last start, and he was completely dominant in his previous 2 starts against Minnesota, who's a really tough team against lefties especially. He's also had a nice his Ks have been pretty solid all year long for the most part, except for, the games where he got lit up. I am okay with embracing – okay, so you have the Royals who don't strike out, who don't walk a ton. You have Matt Boyd who walks people. That's his problem. You have Matt Boyd who can get wild and needs somebody to chase. The Royals chase. I would love to get some umpire data, which I don't have yet on this game. But I'm very much on board with playing Matt Boyd. And if I think Jacob Eunice can throw 75 pitches, 85 pitches maybe. I mean, it's a pitcher against Detroit who's actually had good success against them. It's just worth considering. He's so cheap. But assuming Eunice does actually get the full rank start, I don't think you're going to end up doing that on this slate. I think the real play is Boyd, but it's pretty much Boyd and nothing else for me. And I honestly feel weird and uncomfortable about how much Boyd I have.
I'm really glad that Eunice is pitching, I guess for the same reason that you might be, is that I was probably going to be getting a decent amount of Duffy also before he got scratched. I thought he was going to be a really nice low-owned pivot off of some of this other stuff. And I was not going to be too excited about it, but so they scratched him out. This is my comment. Boyd, I'm looking at possibly on DraftKings him being 40% owned.
Wow.
And
I knew he'd be owned, but I didn't think he'd be that high.
Yeah, and how owned he's going to be really depends. It's kind of weird, right? On the wind in Chicago, right? So
We'll take any action on this.
I still think he ends up less owned than you think.
Review incident.
I think I'm getting some sound out of your thing.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
So the thing about Matt Boyd, and this is just the way I kind of look at it, is 2 things. Number one is I like to play guys like this when they're low owned. I just don't like playing guys like this if they're going to be chalky. It's because they're good GPP plays, right? But to me, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to play him that much if for example, if the wind is really blowing out 20 degrees and 20 miles an hour in Chicago and nobody plays those other 2 guys and they go play Boyd, and I don't know if I'm going to do it. But I'm with you, man. When I first looked at this, I'm like, dude, give me all of this for sure. And also on FanDuel also. I mean, I thought he was the best play there also. So I'm gonna have to think about it and look at it again.
Well, let me throw out some things that might help. I mean, he's got it's an interdivision game. He's obviously got experience against these teams. A couple of the players absolutely have owned him. Hunter Dozier's 10 for 17 with 5 extra bases, 3 doubles, 2 home runs. That's pretty absurd. Whit Merrifield's 22 for 42 off of him. But he hasn't hit a home run off of them, which is kind of interesting. He's hitting 524 and 42 at bats. That's pretty unusual with only 6 strikeouts and somehow hasn't hit a home run. One of the guys who does hit him well is Salvador Perez, who's going to be out. So you take into account he's about 115 to 120 at bats, depending on who makes the lineup tonight against this team. That's not a huge amount, but it's something. He's got about a 40% strikeout rate, and they're hitting about 300 off of him with a lot of power. So you could see this one going both ways. I do think Hunter Dozier is an awesome one-off if you don't play Boyd. But right now I'm leaning Boyd. I'm going to err with the strikeout upside. And again, I'm not going to lock him in or anything, but he is right now one of my favorite pitchers on DraftKings for upside. It's a funny slate because, like we said, there's a lot of options, but they're not like easy options. So maybe we'll find better options than this. But I for right now, I do have a lot of interest in Boyd.
A couple of other things. First of all, I mean, I was kind of on him early, and he's getting up there a little bit in price. But let's call it what it is, man. Mondesi's been freaking in fuego. I mean, he's been just really just murdering it. Now, this is not the type of matchup I want to play him in. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to play guys against Detroit, against Matt Boyd, I want, like you said, I like the righty home run hitters. You know, because that's Boyd's issue, right? Is giving up home runs. But just he's up to 3,600. And he's been just look at it. He's just been freaking. And not the last game, obviously, but he's been just.
Here's the problem I have with that. So you get a lefty on the mound who doesn't allow many stolen bases.
Right. No, exactly. That's my whole point. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and not saying he doesn't allow any stolen bases, because he does allow some, but he doesn't allow that many. And not to say Mondesi couldn't steal against him, but you're betting on a funny sort of upside there. You know what I mean?
The other thing I would say is also just I don't want you to be careful. So I don't think we're going to play them anyway. But if Detroit starts to get ownership, I mean, I'm not going to play them anyway. But Detroit could end up getting some ownership because of the perceived whatever, because of the downgrade in pitcher to Junis. I mean, you look at Junis as just raw. I mean, it's like just game log watch him. It just looks kind of ugly. But I don't. It's just to get into it because people might ask. I really don't like any of the Detroit guys today. I mean, they're gonna project probably to be okay values, but I just don't think you need it. I think you could get it from elsewhere.
Yeah, they are exactly right. And if there's a guy who I would play, it's the guy who's not the value, and that would be Jonathan Scope, just because he's the best hitter on the team. So it's just, I don't think I need to do that today. So I think we actually did a good job with that, just trying to figure, at least for me, trying to figure out. Well, we'll get into it more. I'm really having a hard time with this Boyd decision, but we'll get back to it at the end of it. All right, let's move over to Atlanta, Baltimore. And look, what are you going to do, Sheets? I know you're always Mr. Stack Baltimore in the right spots, but coming off of a big game, I know it's your least favorite time to stack some teams.
Yeah, I'm not doing it. I'm gonna probably, if I do anything, play just the 2-man value guys, just like a 2-man with Mullins and Stewart. I'm not going to go to a full Baltimore stack for the reason that you just mentioned. I just don't like doing it. I don't like betting on crappy teams to go back to back off of 15 run performances and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I could see why people would want to do it. But I'm just not going to. I'd much prefer to play the Atlanta guys, and the expensive guys like Acuna, Freeman, Ozuna. That's what I would prefer. And again, I don't know if I'll get to a full stack, although maybe I can get talked into it. But for now, the first thing I looked at was just kind of like a 3-man, which is kind of those 3 guys. And I didn't really get to that much of them on FanDuel again. FanDuel, I'm kind of a struggler. I don't know what I'm going to do there again.
Yeah, I'm very into Atlanta.
Okay, cool. All right.
I don't like this umpire. I hate stacking with good pictures umpires. It's a Ryan Edition, who's actually a subtraction for the offense. I don't know. Sorry, trying to throw a little Sheets type of joke in there. I couldn't quite get it. Yeah, it's just, I mean, you have an incredibly high-priced team that I'm guessing still ends up being chalky even after dudding yesterday, if people can afford them. They're pricey, man. On FanDuel, I think they're a lot easier to get to, but they are. This team is pricey. But I mean, look, we have a terrible starting pitcher with an awful bullpen behind him against a really good patient offense in a great hitter's park. It's really hard for me not to have interest here. And look, it may not have worked out yesterday. It may not work out sometimes. You basically have a bullpen game with maybe some upside of not just being a bullpen game against a guy who just gives up basically a home run every 3 innings. and that's against normal teams. He also gives up stolen bases, and going back to his minor league numbers, I just don't think anything good about this guy at all. So I don't see any reason not to stack Atlanta here, except for the pricing is tough. And
so the guys besides the guys I mentioned, Acuna, Ozuna, and Freeman, who would be your favorite guys?
my favorite is always going to be Albies and Reilly. I don't care where they're hitting. Because first of all, where they're hitting on a big slate like today, they're going to be lower owned. It's not going to be like yesterday where they're going to be 25, 30% owned or whatever. But Austin Reilly has tremendous power. I always can go back to that. Albies always has the power and stolen base upside, even though he's struggled lately. I'm okay with throwing out some recent numbers and knowing, look, Reilly hasn't hit a home run in 10 games. He was a little bit hot before that, but he hasn't done that lately. We've seen Albies move to the bottom of the lineup in Atlanta, which – say what you will, but the guy's hit 2 home runs the last 5 games, looks to be pretty close to being back. He's also stolen 3 bases the last 5 games. I mean, I think he's one of the best plays on the slate. What's weird is that he's batting 9th. So if Albies was leading off today, I think he might be the cash game second baseman, and him batting 9th is going to make him potentially, not necessarily, but potentially would have him extremely low owned. So that's appealing to me.
So let me make the case for the other guy, because again, I'm trying to learn this component of baseball like this year.
Yeah.
So with respect to quote unquote like the position stuff, right?
Oh no.
So I just figure that Arizona is going to be really popular because of their value, their prices. So Escobar's going to get ownership, and Arenado at third base is also going to be like really, really popular, also just because he's Arenado at home. So maybe Reilly at third base, he'll be like much lower owned than maybe somebody like Albies at second.
Yeah, I just don't know how high Albies can end up being owned batting 9th on this slate, but it is a weak position, so we'll see. I mean, I'm curious to see how that ends up, but I do like, and look, d'Arnaud and Swanson, all these guys, they all make sense. They're just pricey, and for example, would I rather play Swanson, or I'd rather play Semien than Swanson, but you might get some lower ownership on Swanson. It's close, and if you can pay 4.7 for a catcher, I like d'Arnaud quite a bit, but it's hard to pay 4.7 for a catcher today. So that's what I'm sort of running into.
Swanson's 4,900.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Yeah, and he's expensive on FanDuel too.
Wow.
But look, I like their offense. I mean, they're the stack that naturally looked, other than the pitching, the umpire, that naturally made the most sense at first glance for me today.
You like any of that Baltimore stuff or no?
Look, it's the value for me too, but it's going to be pretty popular value, especially after these guys have been performing.
Right.
So maybe what you do is you play the slightly lower owned, but also still a good value Ryan Mountcastle if you feel like
he's really good.
Yeah, and I actually think he's the best player of all these guys by a lot. So I actually think that maybe that's your way of getting a little bit different. If you do need the 25 or 2,400, obviously, Stewart and Mullins are beyond fine. They're good, but I just don't think that. I don't know. It depends on if you need it or not. But I do want Mountcastle. I would prefer him over those guys. He's just a little more expensive.
Okay. Do you want to go on?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Milwaukee, St. Louis.
Yeah. So Flaherty is one of the best spend ups on the slate. He's going to be, he's going to be really popular, and he's going to project really well, and he's certainly in the mix. And again, how popular he is going to, in some sense, depend on what happens in Chicago with the wind and all that stuff. But certainly nothing wrong with Flaherty. He's going to be one of my top 5 pitchers, to say the least. And at first glance, I actually didn't have any interest in any of the hitting on either side of this game. So I don't have a lot to really contribute other than to say that I like Flaherty.
So the interesting part about Flaherty that I'm struggling with a little bit is that the fact that he hasn't pitched more than 5 innings since opening day, basically, and then he had a little injury that he was coming back from. Now he's thrown pitches in those outings. He did have that one weird game against the Cubs where he got pulled early and he only threw 69 pitches, but that's because he was getting hit. But I actually don't really know why. I still thought they would have left him in, to at least get his normal pitch count. But he threw 95 pitches in his last start. It was against Detroit, and the weird part about him is the K rate doesn't look the same. The contact doesn't look he's giving up to more contact. He hasn't had as good a control this year, but the overall numbers are still pretty decent. And Milwaukee can strike out, but the problem is Milwaukee has actually been a much, much better offense than they were at the beginning of the season. And, for good reason, they have other guys back that weren't there, but, there's still enough room here to attack them, I feel like. And I say that they've scored, no more than 2 runs in their last 4 games. Of course, they scored 19 the game before that. But yeah, I'm completely on board with Flaherty. It's weird because there's options, but I don't feel like I have a sure thing with Flaherty here, where at times in the past, and I'm actually curious where ownership, because usually like on this kind of a slate, I feel like Flaherty be the easy chalk, but I'm not sure it's going to end up that way. So I'm kind of curious where ownership ends up. I think Flaherty and Boyd do end up there, but like you said, it might depend somewhat on the wind in Chicago, and we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I'm as of right now, Flaherty is going to be in more than half my lineups on DraftKings. I don't know if I feel like I'm going to end up with it like that, but that's where he is right now.
I might be with you on that.
And I don't think you need to play the bats in this game. I don't really like look, any of the St. Louis bats are fine as one-offs and stuff. Brett Anderson, it's the same story with Brett Anderson. Like, you have a good bullpen behind him. He does a good enough job most of the time. It's not fun. Like, he'll give up runs even, but even his last game, you look at it, like he gives up 6 hits and a couple walks, but he doesn't give any home runs. And I don't know. I'm not as excited here to try and stack St. Louis or anything, but I do think any of their guys make sense as one-offs. I just don't know that I'm going to end up getting to many of them.
All right. So I actually do have a little bit of opinion on the next game. So Minnesota at Chicago, Dobnak and Dunning. Again, so this is who I'm playing, who I'm not playing. I'm not going to be playing the White Sox against Dobnak. Whenever I see Dobnak pitch, wherever I stack against him, whenever I play, the guy just always seems to weave his way out of trouble. The guy can just limits damage. He just does. I mean, I don't know if he's any good or whatever, but he's just a little annoying to have hitters against. That's the best I could describe it. I don't know if the actual data and data points reflect that, but that's kind of my eye test with him. So I'm not going to be playing the White Sox. The other guy I'm not going to be playing is Dunning. And the reason for that is because, I mean, he's making a little ownership is because I definitely play Minnesota. I'm going to be playing the hitters, and I'm going to be playing more aggressively, maybe on DraftKings, maybe than FanDuel again. But I'm going to start with, obviously Buxton. Okay, I mean, he's the way. Hey, you start with Buxton in all slates. And remember I asked him yesterday, are they going to let him play? And you're like, no, probably not.
They didn't. They didn't. There was a late scratch. That's why he played.
I know. They let him late scratch and hit a home run. You know what I mean? The guy's insane. Okay, the guy's awesome. Right? So it's seriously, the guys I like the most on the Twins are Buxton, Donaldson, Kepler. And if he gets in there, Jeffers can make it all freaking work at catcher at 2,200. And I wanted to talk to you about this. I mean, I asked you about this with a different player. Like, I don't like Nelson Cruz. Like, is he a guy you always kind of have to play if you're putting Minnesota stacks together?
So interestingly, what happened all year at the beginning of the season was all these Minnesota stacks weren't winning anything because Nelson Cruz was hitting 2 home runs, and they were trying to find the easy way out without playing him at 6K. Because he was 6K.
Okay.
Remember, he was 6K because he was – I mean, this guy, I guess he's the MVP, right? Like, I don't know – I actually don't know who the American League MVP is. I haven't updated my numbers. But this guy's on pace to – on a regular season, he would be on pace to hit about 60 home runs. He's hitting 325. He'd have on pace to have 125 RBI, 130 RBIs. I mean, I don't know. Like, I like playing him. The argument for fading him is usually that he can strike out and he can walk. So you can get a couple strikeouts from him and a walk, and next thing you know, he only gets really 1 or 2 at-bats, one or 2 times where he makes contact. The problem is when he makes contact, usually you want him. And I totally agree. I had the exact same feeling about this game that you do, except for I do have some interest in Dunning where I'm not playing Minnesota. They've been streaky enough lately, and they've had a lot of their guys struggling. A lot of guys are trying to play injured. Rosario's trying to come back, beaten up. We've got, Marwin Gonzalez has a late scratch last night. I don't really know what's happening with their lineup, and they've really been struggling. They haven't been quite the same team, but I'm completely going to embrace trying to take on a rookie pitcher who can get wild against a team that's patient, that has power. It's just so often the same thing. You end up leaving 1 or 2 over the plate after walking a couple guys. You end up getting blown up early, and it's a Twins onslaught, and that's what I'm open for. I'm expecting the Twins, because it's in division, even though they haven't played yet, to have some pretty good scouting on him. That's just how things work. I always assume teams are going to have more information on pitchers in their division. So I'm okay. I'm on board with the Twin stack. I don't think I'm playing Twins as one-offs, though, in the same thing. Like, maybe there'll be a place to play one, or, here and there. And if Buxton was a little higher in the order at 2,600, of course you could play him, If Jake Caven's in the lineup again at 2,300, you could take a shot there. Yeah, I mean, there's other value out there we talked about in Baltimore, but I like this. I mean, my first stack was a Minnesota-Atlanta combo stack, and if Marwin is back in the lineup tonight, he's a little bit of a value saver. And you mentioned Jeffers at 2.2K. Look, if you're going to punt catchers, you may as well have him be part of your stack. And the truth is that Jeffers has been really good. Like, I don't know why they don't just let this kid play. Like, he's actually just been really good. I mean, forget modern baseball. He's hitting 300. He's got a few home runs, and he just doesn't get a chance to play enough. But I like him. So I'm with you on all things Minnesota, but I also feel like I don't think that they make for a lot of sense for one-offs.
Atlanta, if you're going to do a combo Atlanta-Minnesota, who do you use in the outfield? I mean, who
I think so that's what you have to do. What I like about Atlanta is your ability to stack them on the infield. Even though I would always want Acuna in my stacks. So my primary stack where I'm playing Atlanta, Minnesota has to be Minnesota, because you need to play like 3 Minnesota outfielders. Like, it doesn't matter necessarily. Well, it matters which ones, I guess. But I mean, I rank them, Cruz, Kepler, Buxton, and Rosario's right there. Like, I don't think it's that far off. And then if Cave's in the lineup, you can play. Like, it's just, you probably want 3 of them, because Minnesota's not so fun to stack outside there. You can use the cheap Jeffers, but I don't like Polanco at this price as much. We don't know if Sano's going to be in the lineup, another one who was stretched. So I'm sort of up in the air a little bit with the infield on Minnesota. So I like their outfield, and I like going with the Braves infield. Unfortunately, that means you have to give up on Acuna and Duvall in those specific lineups.
Yeah, that's all right, though.
Yeah.
And do you agree with me on the White Sox?
Yes, and I'm glad you said it, because I think that there's like an argument for like trying to play some of these guys at low ownership, but the truth is Dobnak's been good. Like, in Vegas even likes him. Like, you know what I mean? And not to mention, it sort of might even be like somewhat of a relief game, but like a relief game coming from the 4th, 5th inning maybe. And the Twins, while not amazing from the bullpen, they're not like Detroit. Yeah, so I'm not as high. And also the White Sox are really, really, I mean, they're really expensive. So it's hard to play even if you wanted to.
I just, before I forget, I really like, well, I'm not as much into Minnesota as a kind of a full 4-man on FanDuel. I think Kepler is like a really, really great player over there.
Yeah, his price, because his struggling's gone down. Yeah, it makes sense. I can get behind it.
All right, we done?
Yep. Let's move over to Texas Houston, and I'll start this one off, I guess. So I don't think I'm going to play. I'm not going to play either. I'm not going to say I'm not going to think. I'm not going to play either of these pitchers. I'm trying to figure out if I want to stack Houston and lose money again doing that. And I don't think I do. I think George Springer is way too cheap. I still think Michael Brantley is way too cheap. I might end up with a Houston stack, but as of right now, those are the only one-offs I'm really considering from Houston, and I don't really like them as an individuals all that much. I'm definitely okay with the stack though, and I don't believe in Texas. I don't believe in this kid or the bullpen in Texas, in Cody or the bullpen. So I'm totally fine with it. It's just not. I don't know. Maybe it's personal, and tell me if it is, because I feel like they seem like an obvious stack tonight. I just have seen this story so many times this year, and nothing's happened. And you have a bullpen game against a bad bullpen. Maybe I should have them a little higher.
I didn't get to any Houston today.
Okay.
What about Urquidy and whatever?
I'm not going to play these guys. I can't play pitchers with no strikeout.
Okay. So this is my thoughts on this game.
You got something?
I do. I think that Joey Gallo is a freaking elite play tonight.
That's a great call, actually.
I think that, it's because he's a home run, he can hit home runs, and he's against a chalky pitcher. You know what I mean? Like to me, it's just kind of easy.
Oh, I didn't even think about that part. I didn't know we were going to make your Quiddy a chalky pitcher.
Well, I'm looking at him as being like 25% owned.
It's possible. I think that's a very bold move by the rest of the people to play. I mean, this guy just pitched 6 innings in a game and had 1 strikeout.
Yeah, well, I was the one that was afraid of. I was trying to come up with all this leverage over Caleb Smith, who I thought was going to be 40% owned, and he was like 3%. So what the hell do I know?
Well, maybe the leverage is the right, but here's the part that's right though, is that Joey Gallo, which I didn't have him as high on my list, it's almost like I just sort of forgot about him. When you get a pitcher with almost no strikeout ability, especially a righty against Joey Gallo, let's just fire him up. I mean, look, his only weakness, this guy's weakness, he strikes out 2 or 3 times a game. When he doesn't strike out, he hits the ball really, really, really hard and really far. Let's play Joey Gallo. And by the way, Houston is now a massive stadium upgrade for Texas, apparently, because that new stadium feels like they never score any runs there.
Well, here's the thing. This is what you have to kind of hold me back because I actually was going to take it even a step further and really play more Texas guys.
Okay.
I was going to play on FanDuel, play Gallo and Odor as like kind of a really
I like Odor.
Really solid 2-man. I would add in these other idiots. I would add in Solak and Guzman and the cheap guys Taveras and Tejada. And I don't know. I thought it was a decent. I think it was a decent shot here. And again, a lot of it was predicated on not a lot of it. I mean, they rated okay for me. I mean, like whatever. And if Curdy also got some ownership, I think they could rate out even more okay. So I'm kind of into it.
Yeah, Odor's finally red hot. I'm okay with taking him. I mean, he's got homers in 3 games in a row. I believe still in Solak's talent. He's a good, this kid's got talent. He's going to be a good baseball player. And he's not been terrible. He's just not, we haven't seen the power really. But I'm with you. Those would be the 3 plays that I would look at. I don't really know I'm not as into the other idiots as you are.
Yeah.
But I do like those 3 guys specifically. So you know what, Sheets? I think that's actually a really good call. And it's a different type of value that I don't know if people are going to use too much. I think you'll get a little bit of ownership on Odor being hot lately and Gallo maybe. But I don't think it's going to be anything exceptional. And I really think those are both like really, really strong plays. And then getting Solak even in the righty, he'll be the lowest owned on DraftKings. On DraftKings and FanDuel probably. So definitely can get behind those 3 guys, maybe playing 2 or 3 of them in one lineup.
I mean, honestly, this is literally outside. Stay in my lane. This is literally outside of my lane. But if I were the type to look at that monkey knife fight and these different props and stuff like that, if someone were going to give me like, it'd have to be a lot, right? Like 1,000 to 1 or 500 to 1 that Joey Gallo hits 2 home runs or something like that, yeah. I'd try it. You know what I mean? Like that's
I don't think you're ever getting that though.
No, you don't think?
It's weird. They don't make them like you'd think that they'd be crazy, but the truth is like Joey Gallo probably every year on a regular year probably has 4 multi-home run games a year, maybe 5. So it's like hard for them to ever be like more than 45 to 1 or whatever.
Okay.
But
But in any case, I think he can hit 2 home runs.
I love it, man. I love the call. I'm very much. You talked me into him, and I can't believe I sort of overlooked him in my first glance because I was into Odor, but I really like him, and he's that funny price where like he's not a real value, but it's Joey Gallo, so 4,200 is still an extreme value for the power upside. I love that call.
Yeah. So Cleveland, Chicago. I'm gonna lose a little money on this game.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lose a lot of money on this game, but I'm gonna lose a little. I'm gonna lose a little money on Carrasco, I think. I just am. I don't know what to tell you. I know you say some things are just hardcore no's, like it's not screw with the Chicago wind.
No, but I don't say that about pitchers necessarily, strikeout pitchers.
Oh, okay.
I like it when it's blowing in. When it's blowing slightly out, it's not going to drive me. I'm okay with taking pitchers there.
Yeah, so I'll try. I don't think it's going to be that off the board. You want to know the truth? You know what I mean? I was thinking it was going to be, but I think people will do this too. Anyway, I'm going to do it. I'm going to play a little bit of Carrasco. I'm not going to play any Darvish, although that could be a mistake. But I'm just going to and let the wind kill me in 30% of my lineups maybe.
Yeah. Okay, so I actually like Carrasco.
Good. Okay.
But I don't feel like incredible about it. Like
you're not supposed to.
Well, but the thing with Carrasco that I've always liked about the past is that he's got that like crazy ceiling, and we really haven't seen that in exceptional, like insane games. He's had some really good games, but in all fairness, 2 of his best 3 games are against the Royals. You know what I mean? Like, and The Cubs will strike out. That's great. I love that. But they're patient enough. And the weird part about him is he sort of goes in and out of having his walk thing. Sometimes he's totally got control for like weeks at a time. I don't really know what to call him. You could say he's wild, but the truth is he goes through months where he doesn't walk anybody. So I like. He's always been a guy who's close to my heart. He was on my first 100K lineup. I think he was on another.
Really?
Yeah, I love him. On FanDuel, I think I might prefer. I'm deciding between them. I don't know, man. It's. I'm okay with Darvish too, but it's like a lot of things in this slate. I don't feel so much conviction. I do think that like for the first time ever, it's like I've wanted to take more than ever. I've wanted to take hitters against Carrasco because he is giving up a lot of hard contact. Okay. But there's nobody I really want to play in this game. I don't know. I guess that I'm going to end up playing some Carrasco and a little bit of you, but I don't feel great about it.
I think we're on the same page as far as that goes.
Yeah, I'm talking in circles because I just don't feel great. But all right, we can move on.
Yeah. So, all right, let's just call it what it is. I mean, Matt Olson's an amazing play.
Yeah,
it's an amazing play every game, but against in Coors, it's just Actually, I would probably say that he gets less of an upgrade than a lot of people because it's not like Coors really going to help him. He's going to hit home runs anyway. It's not like any of his home runs would be fly ball outs anywhere. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe that's an interesting way to look at it. Actually, I don't know. I do
that with a lot of guys sometimes. But his price is like reasonable even for a regular matchup.
Yeah. So look, it's the same thing as I always say. They're going to rate to be the best plays, and I'm just probably not going to play them. I think they're just going to be too high owned for me to play them, and it's the way it is, I suppose. Just baseball being baseball. But if you're into it, Olsen, Simeon, Canha, La Stella, Laureano, they all look great. They all project really well, and it's the way it goes when you're playing in Colorado. I didn't get to any of the Colorados for whatever reason on DraftKings. On DraftKings, but on FanDuel for whatever reason, I tried to make some excuse to play some of them. Story Arenado, just the regular guys, Pilar, Kemp, even Hampson, maybe. Should I be looking at Colorado on DraftKings also, or no?
I don't like Colorado.
Okay, all right.
I very much like individually Story and Arenado, and I'm okay if you wanted to play a 3-man stack and play Kemp because I'm not, as much as I've been saying I don't like them, I'm going to explain sort of my thought process on that real quick. Sean Manaea is awesome he's been really good at not giving up home runs for the most part throughout his career. I mean, well, he's been good. Let's just put it that way. Not a huge K rate, which would make it seem nerve-wracking in Colorado, but I think an overall really good pitchers and actually pretty damn good against righties. So I'm sort of taking this cue from Vegas. It's a little interesting to see Colorado with only a 5-run total against a non-superstar pitcher. You know what I mean? This is the spot where they usually have like a 6.5-run total against a guy, even like Manaea. We've seen it already this year. And even Oakland has a 6.45 total against Senzatello, who's actually pitched pretty well for the most part, especially in Colorado. So again, if a game's going to be chalky and I like some other spots, which I don't feel like I must have other spots, but there's other spots I like enough, I don't need to stack this game. I would lean with the Oakland side of it if I had to, but again, I'd probably look for more of a mini stack. And I'm not the person who says you can't play this. You know my thing, Sheets. I say this every time, but it's good to remind everybody. You can play, a couple bats and not play a whole stack in Colorado. That's not the rule. This dumb rule that came up a long time ago is just completely false and wrong in every way. So individual plays would be Olsen number 1 on the Oakland side, Simeon number 2, especially on FanDuel. Jake Lamb on DraftKings. Jake Lamb has looked better since switching teams.
Jake Lamb is still in the league?
And you've got him at 2,500. Remember when he was a good hitter a few years ago, so I'm always got a soft spot. But, he had a home run in his last game. Maybe he's coming, making a little comeback here. He finally hit his first home run of the year. Gross. At 2.5K, if he bats 6, I don't mind taking a little shot there. These guys, he's so cheap. Maybe he's an interesting way you could do a different build. It doesn't feel great to use your first base spot, but it wouldn't feel great to use an outfield spot either on him. So those are sort of, and then Vimy Machine, like the other guy, the shortstop. You could use him at third base or shortstop. I suggest using him at shortstop. he'll bat near the bottom of the order, but he's 3K on DraftKings. You know what I mean? Like, you can 2.6 on FanDuel. You can play a couple, like, these guys, like a little mini stack and do it cheaply. I don't mind that. Sean Murphy, you could use as your catcher on FanDuel, on DraftKings. I'm okay with all of it. I actually think Elias Diaz, assuming that he's in the lineup, is the better catching option at 2.5. But because he actually is a decent enough hitter, and going to Colorado might actually make him into a better hitter. So he's a better hitter to me than Murphy, probably. Well, I don't know, actually. I kind of like Murphy, too, a little bit. I think they're both going to have better
You know what? Grossman's probably a good play, too.
He's like one of those guys you can see getting like the little boost. He doesn't have the power that I love to play in general for chalky guys who have got in third, but I'm okay with it. Sure.
Yeah, so they're fine and chalky and probably would want to play some in cash line. How do you even play baseball cash? I couldn't even imagine doing it.
Especially, you know what's crazy is it's so easy to come up with the normal cash game build. Like I can tell you who the cash game play is in every position without like ever reading a thing. It's pretty, but it's just from doing it for a long time. But it would drive me crazy to do it. I agree with you that part of what you're saying for sure.
Like, for example, just the way the results distribute in baseball, I could. I'm not saying I would win at cash, but I could play like a basketball cash lineup and a football cash lineup and be completely content with how it's going to do. You know what I mean? Like whether it actually does it or whatever, but I can do that. Baseball, I couldn't do it. I just wouldn't be able to do it.
It's weird, yeah. It's also strange when you see people like in cash because they'll be totally different things where two guys will pay down at pitching and spend up everything on Coors, and other guys will spend all the way up at pitching and ignore Coors. Like it just changes. All right, so let's get over to the next one, right?
I have to be some kind of madman, okay? Because maybe you should talk about this first. Because at first look, I didn't have a shred from this game, which is kind of bizarre, right? I mean, like, how could I not have lefties against Dodger lefties? So I guess I gotta take a look at it again. Is everybody just way too expensive? Is that what it is? I don't know. So you got to lead me through this game. I didn't like either pitcher, and I didn't get to much of the hitting at all. So you gotta walk me through this one.
So the problem is Davies has been really good this year, and for some reason has been really good against this Dodger team in general for a while now, and I don't understand entirely why. His control's pretty good, but he's actually slipped up a little bit lately. Maybe you can find some, hey, maybe we could play somebody against him. I don't mind it. If you want to go super contrarian, I have no problem with a Dodger stack here. It's not like great hitting conditions. It's fine in San Diego. There's not much wind, but it's blowing in a little bit as of right now anyway. But, like, yeah, I think it'd be Seeger number one. I think he's the best play. And then I think that, whether you figure Bellinger, Muncy, what you do with those guys in bets, I think they're all fine. I just don't know that as one-offs I'll get to a lot of them. If Peterson's up batting early in the order again, maybe I'll take a shot there. You have a low strikeout pitcher, although he's actually been better this year with strikeouts against a guy who struggles, like he struck out 3 times last night and 4 at bat. That's what he does. So you eliminate that part of it a little bit. Maybe you can connect with one. He's 3K. He was batting second last night. So Jock, depending on where he's at the lineup, that's going to be the answer for me. I don't really have a lot of other interest in this game. I think it's interesting that the run total is so low for San Diego. I actually thought the run total in this game would be a little bit higher, but I don't really see myself getting to San Diego against Gonsolin in a pretty good Dodger bullpen.
Okay. So Arizona against LA. I was a little bit surprised when I just looked at, not till I guess I looked at the prices. I was a little surprised when I first looked at ownership projections that Arizona was going to be, and they could end up being the second chalkiest team on the slate. And it was surprising because Arizona just never is, And I guess from a pricing perspective, I guess it's just so easy to get to them. It's not like, is Tehran that bad? I don't know.
He's coming back off the injuries after being gone for basically a year.
Okay.
So he's not the same guy he used to be. He used to be absolutely great against righties and really bad against lefties. Yeah, personally, I understand it from a run total standpoint, but what have we got? Like, you're going to have mega chalk on Rojas and Van Meter, who have combined 1 home run this year. Like, okay, maybe I'll find something else. That's my stake.
Yeah, I don't need it. And you know what? So talk to me. So here's the other thing. So the other thing about the Angel side of it. So at first look, I just basically asterisk the Angels, right? And I'm like, okay, you know, if other guys are going to be more chalky, I'll take Angels, and I'll take Upton, Trout, Rendon, Adele, whatever it is. And I don't know, man. It's first of all, again, it's funny from our other project that we're working on. I promise you that my ROI playing Angels is really low. Like I really do poorly when I take the Angels. That's the one thing. And second of all I'm hearing all day long is how just awful Bumgarner is. And okay, it's possible that he's just a shadow of his former self, but maybe it's just too easy. You know what I mean? Maybe these guys are just going to end up being too popular, and maybe the Angels are just a bad idea. I don't know.
I'm curious where their ownership ends up. It does seem like they'll have some popular spots. Justin Upton is my preferred play. What I'm looking for against Bumgarner, it's pretty simple. Like his control has actually been bad this year, but in general, that was like one of his reasonably strong suits for a while. He's giving up a lot of hard contact. He's giving up a lot of home runs. Like, I mean, what has he given up? 8, 10, 11 in his last 28 innings. I mean, okay, and this is a powerful righty team that crushes lefties. I mean, like Rendon, Trout, and Upton are your preferred plays. That's my opinion. Everybody else is fine. If you want to stack them, those are the guys who I'll make a priority. I don't care that they're going to be somewhat high-ish owned. I don't think I'm doing the normal thing anyway. And honestly, I'm curious where it ends up with Colorado price where they are. It might be a little bit hard, and with the Braves price where they are, it might be harder to get these Angels in than some people think, or one of those other teams ends up lower owned than maybe we think. So if Colorado ends up lower owned, even though I'm not a huge fan of them, I would absolutely take the shot, because if everybody does play these teams instead, it's still Coors, man.
Yeah.
I always justify not playing it, but that's because everything should be ownership driven in baseball, at least to some extent. And this is the time where I'm going to let that sort of dictate a little bit between those. I don't like the Angels overall stack as much as the other ones, but I really like those three guys. And on FanDuel, you can play like David Fletcher, where he's not 5.3K like he's on FanDuel. I don't know who's going to make the lineup, whether it be Walsh in a lefty-lefty spot where he'll be hitting. I just would prefer to take the power hitting righties here, Rendon and Trout, and historically Upton. Rendon and Trout, though, are two of like the all-time great hitters for power against lefties of all time. And Upton is historically and like not that tier, but he's like just the next tier down. So those are the three guys I would be trying to get.
Yeah. I don't know, I think Bumgarner's just a sneaky mother effer. You know what I mean? I don't know. He's had a long, great career. He's probably won. I don't even remember him. He probably won Cy Young back in the Eisenhower administration.
He's been the most overrated pitcher in the history of baseball because of.
I know, but he's
two great postseason runs is what he did. Two great postseason runs. Like
he has a couple of rings, right?
Yeah. Oh, all-time great postseason runs.
Yeah.
He's never one of the best 25 pitchers in baseball, in my opinion, and was massively overrated, but just dominated two postseasons. I mean, Michael Wacha did that one postseason too. Like, it's not like just because you do that once, you get to be anointed. And I think a lot of people feel that way about Bumgarner, but lately when you start looking at the actual numbers, it's hard to deny. The problem is like, and it's not like he's faced the easiest teams either, but you get the Padres hit 4 off of them, the Dodgers hit 2 off of them. That's forgivable. Houston hit 2 off of them. But these Angels fall into those type of categories. So I'm going to jump on the Angels, those 3 Angels specifically. And then if you want to play anybody else to fill out a stack, that's fine with me.
So we don't really do this too much in baseball as much as basketball. But if you didn't like any of that, if you, whatever reason, didn't feel like playing Urquidy, and if you were a little nervous about playing a rookie like the Yankees, that guy, and if you really wanted to wait till the end of the night to worry about a cheap SP2 or whatever, an SP2, you can tempt fate, man, and just go stream against Seattle lefties again, and play Tyler Anderson. He's 7,300, right in the same price range. At first, my first ownership runs, actually, when I looked, they was showing him at like being 25%. I can't imagine that being the case. When you get down to it, I think when they get down to it at the end, people are gonna either play the Yankee dude or Curdy if they're going to pay down. And, you know, I think that Anderson is a perfectly reasonable pivot given Seattle's, you know, traditional problems with lefties. I think he's perfectly okay. The other thing I would say is that it's a really weird thing, but on FanDuel, I actually liked a small little two-man with Brandon Belt and Evan Longoria from the San Francisco side. And again, if I'm looking for little tiny two-mans, I mean, that literally, there's going to be 7 people that own that. You know what I mean? So that's pretty much all I had. Did you look at Tyler Anderson, or what do you think of that, or anything else in that game?
I actually did look at Tyler Anderson. My issue is, like, I hate low strikeout pitchers to use, but I do like that he keeps the ball on the ground. Like, he can pitch deep into games. He's already got a complete game shutout this year, which very few pitchers have, like a 9-inning one and not a 7-inning one. But in that game, like, he struck out 4 guys. Like, you need so much to go right for him. But at the same time, it's not like you're terrified by this lineup, and maybe there's a little, like, an extra strikeout or 2 in there. So if he can go like 6 and get 6, give up a run or 2, get the win, you know, looking at roughly almost 20 fantasy points, I'd be thrilled with that. Like, but I think that it's more likely he goes, you know, 5 innings, strikes out 4, and gives up 2 runs or something, and, you know, maybe plays in a no decision or something. Like, that's probably slightly a little bit more likely, but I'm okay with it. I sort of prefer the Garcia play, but I'm open to it. And also, I do like San Francisco a little bit. I never say that. I just think, like, Brandon Belt at 3.6, and you touched on that. Like, that's a great price for him. He's been really, really sneaky good this year. And, like, I've heard everybody on it. Sheets, you're going to have to explain this to me, because for some reason it always fires me up. Like, these guys on all these shows talk about how horrible Brandon Belt's been this year. I'm trying to figure out what the hell they're talking about. Are they only looking at hard hit numbers? Or are they looking at, like, I don't get it. Like, you got a guy who's going to be on pace to hit 35, 40 home runs, hit 310 with driving in 100 runs. Like, that's a good player. Like, that's the guy who usually beats 4.5 to 5K, not 3.6K in a good matchup. And nobody ever plays him. So I totally agree with him. I don't know who else to play with him, though. I don't know if I'm
going to comment on that in a second. First, let me just say that Tyler Anderson, I just game log watching. I mean, 3 of his last 4 games, he's like right around 100 pitches. You know what I mean? So he can go there, and again, depending on how you want to look at it, I mean, his last start was against Seattle, and he was fine, good enough, right?
Right. Oh, he's great.
Yeah, so he had a 1 million run lead, so it made life easier on him, I guess. But nonetheless, now it's so funny, your whole thing about Brandon Belt. It just reminds me of, like, how in depth, like, daily fantasy players, like, get into these players, because it's so funny. Like, if I, like, asked, like, my son or, like, just regular sports fans what they think of Brandon Belt, they would say, I have no idea who that is. I mean, like, literally no idea. And then they're like, oh, he plays for what? And you told him the team, he's like, okay, whatever. And the fact that, like, you actually notice that the industry, like, has it in for Brandon Belt. It's like amazing, like how far DFS will go, you know what I mean, to get to drill down to these things. Because Brandon Belt to me is just some dude, you know what I mean, that plays out, that may or may not play in San Francisco. Like, if I didn't do daily fantasy sports or whatever, if I didn't, like, look at this every day, like for example, I didn't even realize Jake Lamb was traded to the other team. You know what I mean? So I'm looking at Brandon Belt, and to me, like 99% of the population, he's just kind of an afterthought. But you're actually, like, it tilts me how much other people just don't like Brandon Belt. And I'm like, everybody's like, who? What? I didn't even know he played, right? But yes, I mean, that's where you get edge is from finding, differences in perception of guys that are on slates. And Brandon Belt is, let me tell you something. Brandon Belt has just as much impact on, performance as anybody else's price. So it even that little type of an edge might mean something. So yeah, so I'll play Belt, I'll play Longoria just as a 2-man over at San Francisco, just for F's sake. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even me with specifically with Belt. Sometimes I think it's what I get frustrated by is the way that people analyze stuff in the industry, because they take advanced stats and then they skip all the baseline stats. And if you look at Cody Bellinger and Mike Trout based on their hard hit percentage last year, now sure they had obviously good power numbers because they had home runs and stuff, But if you look at they would be in the 80s in terms of hard hit percentage because they both didn't strike out much last year. Whereas it's actually a reflection of how much better of hitters they are because they've learned not to strike out and put the ball in play as well as hitting these massive home runs. Whereas guys like, and there's the other guys who are always more popular here on daily fantasy. People love Gallo, Olsen. I used to love Sano for this reason, and it makes sense because these guys strike out a ton. So all of their hard hit percentage when they make contact is going to be harder than the guys who don't strike out a ton. Anyway, that's my point. They just sort of like they nerd out on these advanced stats. And they act like you're an idiot for looking at the basic stats. And if I say a guy has hit 10 home runs, they're like, oh yeah, but he's lucky because only 4 of them were over 105 miles an hour velocity. It doesn't matter. Guys hit 10 home runs. I don't care how hard they're coming. You know what I mean? If he's a guy who plays in Boston and he's getting help from the porch, then I'll skip him when he's not in Boston. But when he's in Boston, he still hits over that porch. It doesn't matter. Anyway. All right, I digress. Anyway, I think that we sort of narrowed down our focus here. But you want to sort of highlight? I think I'll just real quick go the pitchers that I'm using on both sites, but would be Carrasco, Boyd, Darvish, and I think that and Flaherty. The only ones I would add to that for DraftKings would be Anderson potentially and Garcia. Anybody new for you?
No. Yeah. On DraftKings, I had Boyd, like you said, Urquidy, Garcia, and Anderson would be my other guy, and Carrasco. So Carrasco and Anderson. I don't know if you must have mentioned Carrasco. I'm sorry, I was looking at something else. But Carrasco and then some Anderson. And on FanDuel, it depends how ownership goes. I'm between Boyd and Flaherty. Probably is my top choice over there.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Boyd thing feels weird, guys. I know it does. I have a little less interest because he's had trouble getting past the 5th inning a lot this year. But This is the kind of game where I think he would. But I still get it. I still like him over there. Don't get me wrong. I'm just throwing it out there. Real quick, home runs. All right, we can just pick 3 random guys. Sheets. Give me 3 random guys who are going to hit home runs tonight.
Back to back. I don't know if they go back to back, but back to back Odor, Gallo.
All right, I like that. You just took one of mine.
And a third one. Look, we were all agreeing that Olsen's going to hit one, so he doesn't count. Okay. You know what? I'll go with guy you kind of alluded to, and I'll go Anthony Rendon.
That's exactly what I was just writing down. Damn it.
Really?
Yeah, no joke. But I didn't. I had already had an angel anyway. So I'm gonna say Justin Upton. Corey Seeger is my weird one who's paying up, which shouldn't be a weird one, but by the way, is going to be a little bit ignored tonight. And I really like him as a what's his name? Is not giving up many home runs this year, but this Dodger team is not a normal team. They can hit home runs off anybody. Hunter Dozier is my favorite one though. Hunter Dozier, Upton, and Seeger. I'll go with.
What was I going to say? Also, obviously Buxton.
Oh, we forgot about Buxton. I mean, that's a given, though, right? That's an Olsen.
Yeah, Buxton and Olsen. You just kind of have to. Those are like the free squares in this contest.
All right, sounds good, man. Well, hopefully we're helpful to all you guys out there. We appreciate it. We're coming up live with the QLTV show in a little bit. And for Sheets, I'm Bobby saying we'll see you at the top of leaderboards.